I can honestly say I never thought I would buy or own a Fuji X-T4, but here it is. I've actually bought one, and in this video I want to talk about the slightly strange and unusual circumstances which have led to me actually buying a Fuji X-T4, and I want to talk about the improvements that I hope this camera will bring to my photography and video over the X-T3 that I owned. So if you've not subscribed to my channel, here's a little bit of information about what I do. When I'm using a camera, I spend most of my time doing landscape photography, but I also have a real passion and an interest in wildlife photography, so I spend quite a lot of time doing that as well. On my channel here, I make mainly outdoor videos and the odd occasional indoor video as well, such as this one. When it comes to photography equipment, I think like most people I enjoy getting new gear, but I don't tend to buy new gear unless it's for what I feel is a very worthwhile reason. So perhaps the equipment I've got no longer suits my requirements if my requirements have changed. Possibly there's a problem that I can only solve with new equipment, or some new camera or piece of equipment has come out with some new feature which I think is really going to benefit my photography or video making in some way, and that may lead to a purchase. But generally speaking, as long as everything's working well for me, I stick with the same equipment for a long time. Now, I've used a number of cameras over the years, and the most recent camera that I was using up until the end of last year or the beginning of this year was a Canon 5D Mark IV. I had that for a number of years, was very pleased with it, but for about probably the latter half of 2019, I was really strongly considering changing to another camera, and I had my eye on the Fuji X-T3. There was a number of reasons for that, and I've made a video covering that. So if you haven't seen it and you'd like to know why I switched to the Fuji X-T3, then have a look in the description below and I'll leave a link to that video. But anyway, at the beginning of this year, January 2020, I got my Fuji X-T3 and I really liked it. I enjoyed using it. I was really happy with the image quality. Then, roughly about 2 weeks after I got the Fuji X-T3, there started to be some rumours of an X-T4 coming out. Now, this was much earlier than expected. It was rumoured, I think it was going to come out in spring, and typically I think everyone was really expecting the X-T4 would arrive maybe nearer autumn time. So when I bought my X-T3, I thought I would get a lot of months of use out of it before a new model came out. So I was slightly disappointed when I heard an X-T4 was going to come out much sooner than expected. But I kept using my X-T3, I was very happy with it. And then a few weeks after that, the confirmed specifications of the X-T4 came out. And at that point, I wasn't quite as disappointed. The X-T4, which I've got here, looked a fantastic camera on paper, there was no doubt about that. But there was two reasons I didn't feel too disappointed and why I decided I'm not going to buy an X-T4. Number one is that of all the new features that it's got, and I'll talk a little bit about those in a while, I didn't really feel any of them would benefit my photography in a major way. What really sealed the deal for me to stay with my X-T3 was picturing I was out taking an image of a landscape, my camera's on a tripod, I take a shot with the X-T3 and then I take one with an X-T4. They would look identical because the sensor was the same or is the same in both cameras. So that really made me feel okay about sticking with my X-T3. The second reason is of course money. I would have had to sell my X-T3, which I'd only bought a few weeks ago, made probably quite a loss, and then needed a lot of money to put towards the X-T4 to be able to buy it. So I didn't feel too disappointed looking at the specs. Had I been in a situation where I could have picked either camera, I would have of course preferred the X-T4, but as it was, I had to stick with my X-T3 and I was very happy about that. So why now have I got here a brand new Fuji X-T4? Well, although I was really happy with my X-T3, I soon began to notice an issue with it, and I won't go into that in detail in this video because it's quite a long story and it really doesn't matter, I guess, but there was an issue with the sensor, and in short, my X-T3 went to Fuji for repair. It came back and the problem was still there. I sent it off a second time to Fuji, it came back again and there was no change. Now I think that's a pretty isolated incident. I think Fuji X-T3s, I believe, are quite reliable, but I obviously had a bad experience, and that can always happen with products no matter how well they are made. So I found myself in an interesting situation. The choices I was given was to get a brand new X-T3 as a replacement or get a full refund. Now obviously this put me in a different situation than I was a few weeks ago when I heard the X-T4 was coming out. Now I was able to get the full amount of money back for my X-T3, and I thought, well, would the X-T4 now benefit me that I can get it for a smaller amount of money? And then the answer, once I went through the specifications and thought about it more and more, was a resounding yes. Since my camera was going back and I was getting a full refund, I was back in the position I was when I sold my Canon 5D Mark IV and I was wanting to move to the Fuji line. At that point, the X-T3 was the camera I wanted and there was no X-T4, and the X-T4 seemed almost a year off. But now that the X-T4 was out and I could see the specs of it, then unquestionably that was the correct choice for me to buy at this point in time. And that's why I've got it here. So obviously I still needed to pay some more money to get to the X-T4, but that's something I would have been willing to do anyway at the time I was switching from my Canon camera. So if this had been out at the time I purchased my X-T3, I would have bought this model. So looking at it now, what do I expect to gain with the Fuji X-T4 for my requirements over my X-T3? So there's been quite a few changes in this camera. I'm not going to cover every single detail, but I'm going to talk about the things that I think will personally benefit me. So first off is the battery life. This camera has got a longer battery life. That will mean I'm going to carry less batteries when I'm outdoors, and it means I'm going to be able to change battery less often. So that's definitely an improvement for me. The second thing is the in-body image stabilization. Now, the fact that I spend most of my time with a camera doing landscape photography means that I don't technically think that's an essential requirement. Most of the time my camera is on a tripod, and that will still be the case, but now I can definitely see myself taking much more photographs handheld than I would have previously been able to. Also, that's going to be of some benefit for my YouTube channel, because if I'm outdoors filming a few video clips, I'll be able to get a bit smoother footage on this camera as I could have done on my X-T3. Another thing that I consider an improvement, but I'm on the fence a little bit about this one, but I definitely do think it's going to help me overall, is the new rear screen, the articulating rear screen. So the times I would use this outdoors for video, previously I couldn't take the screen and turn it around so that when I'm facing the camera I could frame my composition, check I'm in focus and so on. I couldn't do that with the X-T3, but I will be able to do that now. It's also a screen which can go at many different angles, so it's very useful. But on the downside, it now sticks out at the side of the camera. I guess it's potentially a bit more prone to being caught on something and potentially damaged if it gets pushed that way. And also, I really liked the design of the screen on the X-T3 for my stills photography. I really liked how it remained behind the camera and you could just tilt it. It was very easy. If your camera was low down in a tripod, you could just tilt the screen up and be able to see it. You can, of course, still do exactly the same thing with this, except you've now to flip it out and rotate it and it sticks out the side of the camera. So there's a few pluses and minuses to this new design, but the fact I will be using this at times for video means that this design of screen does suit me better. Also on this screen, it's a higher resolution screen, so it's going to be a bit nicer and sharper to look at, and that'll just help with focusing and checking images are sharp and so on when I'm reviewing them. So overall, I do think the new screen design is a benefit. The Fuji X-T4 has got a better autofocus system than the Fuji X-T3 did. So that's not really going to help me with my landscape photography. But if I'm recording video and I'm wanting the camera to track my face, hopefully that will now work a little bit better on the X-T4 as opposed to the X-T3. It's also going to be very useful for my wildlife photography, so if I'm outdoors perhaps tracking birds in flight, this autofocus system should perform better than the X-T3 did. Another thing that's improved on the X-T4 over the X-T3 is the mechanical shutter. So according to Fuji, this one's meant to be a little bit quieter, it's got a longer lifespan, and in continuous shooting mode, it's meant to have a higher frames per second. So that's going to be of benefit to me when I'm doing my wildlife photography. And the final thing that matters to me about this camera is that you can store separate settings and preferences for video and stills photography. So that's going to make my life a little bit easier when I'm outdoors doing my photography and making some videos. But I honestly never thought I would buy or own a Fuji X-T4, yet here one is. It's only due to some quite strange circumstances. And I'm really excited to use this camera now. But unfortunately here in the UK we're still in lockdown. So that means for me that I'm now headed out to my garden to try and take some images. My opportunities there are extremely limited, but I'm sure I'll find something, and if I do, I'll put it up at the end of this video. But I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. Are you buying an X-T4? Or do you already own an X-T3 and you maybe feel it's not worth it? Or do you feel it is worth upgrading to the X-T4? Whatever your circumstances, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this new camera. But for now, as always, I really do appreciate you taking the time to watch my videos. Take care, and I'll hopefully see you in my next one.
The distance between us will